Nothing about human bodies makes sense when Alara discovers a mysterious genetic sequence, actively repairing mutations at impossible speeds. As Director Kincaid and security storm the lab to suppress this revelation, Alara and Merrick execute a desperate plan. In those breathless moments, with alarms blaring and guards advancing, Alara broadcasts the truth to the entire solar system, forever changing humanity's understanding of itself. In the year 2357, the interplanetary research station Aurelius 9 hovered at the edge of the chaos sector, its cylindrical modules rotating slowly against the backdrop of swirling plasma storms. The station's primary mission, constructing a biological superstructure that merged nanotechnology with human biology, a project that promised to revolutionize human existence across the colonized planets. Dr. Alara Nakamura stood at the viewport of the arrivals deck, watching as the transport ship that had brought her disengaged its docking clamps and drifted back toward the jump point. She was the newest addition to the station's medical team, a young surgeon anatomist with a reputation for meticulous work and innovative thinking. The viewport's polarized glass dimmed automatically as a plasma flare erupted in the distance, casting eerie blue-green light across her features. "Quite the light show, isn't it?" A voice came from behind her. Alara turned to see a tall man with close-cropped silver hair and dark eyes. His station uniform bore the insignia of the Biological Engineering Division. "It's beautiful," she admitted, "and terrifying." "The perfect combination for scientific discovery." The man extended his hand. "Merrick Solis, Senior Biological Engineer. I've been assigned to show you to your quarters and brief you on your first assignment." Alara shook his hand firmly. "Dr. Alara Nakamura," eager to get started. As they walked through the station's curved corridors, Merrick explained that Aurelius 9 was primarily funded by Drex Corporation, with supplementary grants from the Interplanetary Science Coalition. The official mission is to study human physiological adaptations to deep space and develop enhancement technologies, he said. "But between you and me, Drex is more interested in patents than publications." Alara nodded. Corporate funding always came with strings attached, but she wasn't concerned. Her personal mission transcended corporate interests. She wanted to understand the mysteries of human physiology, to map the unexplored territories of the body's capabilities. And Aurelius 9, with its cutting-edge equipment and diverse crew from across the colonized worlds, offered unprecedented opportunities for such research. "You'll be conducting routine anatomical surveys at first," Merrick continued. "Director Kincaid likes new personnel to prove themselves before assigning them to more sensitive projects." "I'm happy to start with the basics," Alara replied, though inwardly she felt a twinge of disappointment. She hadn't traveled to the edge of known space to perform standard examinations. Later that evening, alone in her quarters, Alara reviewed the station's research protocols on her tablet. The screen's glow illuminated her determined expression as she scrolled through document after document. Whatever mundane tasks they assigned her initially, she would excel at them. She would prove her worth and earn access to the station's more groundbreaking projects. "Computer, display the most recent publications from Aurelius 9, she commanded, as titles and abstracts populated her screen. Alara felt a surge of hope. This remote outpost was doing fascinating work that could change humanity's understanding of itself. And now she was part of it. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The medical bay of Aurelius 9 was a marvel of efficiency, with automated diagnostic equipment that would make Earth's finest hospitals seem primitive by comparison. Alara moved confidently among the examination pods, conducting routine physicals on crew members as part of her initial assignment. "Next patient, please," she called, not looking up from her tablet as she recorded notes on her previous examination. "Technician Ravi Patel," announced the medical bay's AI, "scheduled for standard quarterly physical and tissue sampling." Alara greeted the young man who entered, dark-skinned, with a nervous smile and the distinctive blue jumpsuit of the station's maintenance division. "First time being examined by a human doctor in years," Patel said, as he took a seat on the examination table. "The medbots usually handle these routine checks. Director Kincaid wants me to familiarize myself with the crew's baseline readings," Alara explained. "Nothing to worry about." The examination proceeded normally until Alara noticed an anomaly on Patel's forearm. A recently healed scar that hadn't been documented in his medical file. "What happened here?" she asked, gently turning his arm to examine the mark. Patel shrugged. "Cut myself pretty bad while replacing a coolant valve last week. The medbot patched me up." Alara frowned. "The scar tissue suggests a much older injury. Are you sure this happened just last week?" "Positive. It was bleeding all over the place and scared the hell out of me." Curious. Alara took a tissue sample from the scar site for analysis. As standard procedure, she also collected blood and epithelial cell samples for the quarterly physicals. She labeled everything carefully before sending the samples through the pneumatic system to the analysis lab. Her next 3 examinations were unremarkable, but throughout them, Alara's thoughts kept returning to Patel's scar. Something didn't add up. When she had a break, she accessed the analysis lab results. The blood work was normal, as were most of the tissue samples. But the scar tissue from Patel's arm showed something extraordinary. The collagen remodeling phase, which typically took weeks or months, showed evidence of being nearly complete after just 7 days. "That's impossible," Alara muttered, rechecking the data. She pulled up Patel's previous medical records, including footage from the medbot that had treated his injury. The video confirmed it. A deep laceration that should have left him with weeks of healing ahead. Yet here he was, with scar tissue that looked months old. Curiosity piqued. Alara took a small sample of her own epithelial cells and subjected them to controlled trauma in a culture dish. Then, she set up a time-lapse recording and left to complete her scheduled examinations. When she returned 3 hours later, what she saw on the monitor stopped her cold. The damaged cells weren't just repairing themselves. They were doing so at a rate that defied everything she knew about human cellular regeneration. The time-lapse showed her cells repairing damage in minutes that should have taken hours or days. Alara's heart raced. She ran the test again with new samples. The results were the same. "This is medically impossible," she whispered to herself, staring at the screen. Had someone introduced nanotechnology into the station's crew without documentation? Was this some kind of experimental genetic modification, or something else entirely? As she contemplated these possibilities, the medical bay doors slid open. Director Vera Kincaid strode in, her angular face set in its usual stern expression, silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Dr. Nakamura, I understand you've been conducting some unscheduled tests?" Her voice was cool, controlled. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. How had Kincaid known? "I noticed an anomaly in one of the crew members," Alara explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "I was just following up with some standard verification procedures." "All research initiatives must be approved through proper channels," Kincaid said. "I'd hate to see your promising career derailed by procedural violations so early in your tenure here." Alara nodded, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the clear threat. "Of course, Director. It won't happen again." "Good." Kincaid's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, and I'll need all data from your curiosity-driven exploration. For proper filing, of course." "I'll send everything right away," Alara agreed. After Kincaid left, Alara quickly copied the key findings to her personal encrypted storage before transmitting the official data to the director's office. Something was happening on this station, something that defied medical science as she understood it, and for some reason, the administration didn't want her investigating it. But Alara Nakamura hadn't come to the edge of known space to ignore the most significant medical mystery she'd ever encountered. She was going to get answers, with or without official approval. You're out of your mind, Merrick Solis whispered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. They stood in a quiet corner of the station's arboretum, surrounded by genetically enhanced plants that served both as oxygen generators and food sources. The humid air smelled of earth and growing things, a stark contrast to the sterile atmosphere of the rest of the station. "I know what I saw," Alara insisted. "Human tissue doesn't heal that quickly, not without intervention. And you think what? That Drex is experimenting on the crew without consent?" Merrick ran a hand through his silver hair. "That's a serious accusation." "I'm not accusing anyone yet. I'm trying to understand what I'm seeing." Alara pulled out her tablet, showing him the cellular regeneration data she'd collected. "Look at this. It's not just accelerated healing. It's as if the DNA itself is adapting somehow." Marek studied the screen, his expression shifting from skepticism to confusion to concern. "This isn't possible." "That's what I keep telling myself. But the evidence is right there." He handed the tablet back to her, looking troubled. "Listen to me carefully, Alara. We respect each other. But you're poking a hornet's nest. Drex will eliminate anything that threatens their commercial interests. If they're doing something off the books, they won't hesitate to silence anyone who discovers it." "Are you saying I should ignore this? Pretend I never saw it?" "I'm saying be careful." Merrick's voice dropped even lower. "Not everyone on this station is who they appear to be, including me." Before Alara could ask what he meant, another crew member entered the arboretum, and Merrick smoothly changed the subject to the nutritional properties of the enhanced vegetables growing around them. Later, alone in her lab, Alara replayed Marek's warning in her mind. If Drex Corporation was conducting unauthorized experiments, she needed hard evidence before making any accusations. And if the phenomenon she'd observed was something else entirely, something natural but previously undocumented, that could be the discovery of the century, she needed more data, more samples, and more time to analyze them without raising alarms. Over the next 2 weeks, Alara carefully collected tissue samples from various crew members during routine examinations. She worked after hours, using equipment in a secondary lab that saw little traffic. She designed tests to probe the limits of the cellular regeneration she'd observed, documenting everything meticulously. The results consistently defied conventional medical understanding. Every human tissue sample she tested showed the same extraordinary capacity for repair and adaptation, far beyond what should be possible. She scanned for nanotechnology, finding nothing. She looked for unusual proteins or enzymes that might explain the phenomenon. Again, finding nothing out of the ordinary. The cellular structures appeared completely normal under examination. They just behaved in ways that were theoretically impossible. As she worked, Alara found herself questioning her own competence. Was she making some fundamental error in her methodology? Had her equipment been compromised? Or was she seeing patterns that weren't actually there? The doubts gnawed at her, especially during the long night cycles when she lay in her quarters, staring at the ceiling, replaying her procedures in her mind, searching for flaws. "Am I losing my mind?" she whispered to the darkness. Then came the breakthrough. After nearly 3 weeks of investigation, Alara managed to isolate a section of DNA that seemed to be at the heart of the mystery. Using the station's advanced sequencing equipment, she identified a previously unknown genetic sequence, one that appeared to be actively repairing mutations and damage at an unprecedented rate. This wasn't supposed to be possible. DNA didn't self-correct this way. It didn't adapt to environmental pressures in real time, not without generations of evolutionary pressure. Yet here it was, undeniable evidence of something that fundamentally changed our understanding of human biology. Alara was so absorbed in her discovery that she almost missed the alarm. A plasma storm, the largest recorded in the sector, was bearing down on Aurelius 9. The station's shields were activating, but communications would be disrupted for at least 72 hours. For 3 days, the station would be cut off from Earth and the other colonies. 3 days, during which Alara could work without fear of external oversight. It was the opportunity she'd been waiting for. "Merrick," she said when she found him in the engineering section, preparing emergency backup systems for the storm. "I need your help." He looked at her with those dark, knowing eyes. "You found something?" "Yes, and I need to understand what it means before the storm passes." Marek hesitated, then nodded. "Meet me in Lab 7 after the second shift change. Bring everything you've got." When Alara arrived at the designated lab, she found Merrick had already prepared the advanced electron microscope and genetic analysis equipment. He worked with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done this before, someone who knew exactly how to operate equipment that should have been outside his area of expertise. "You're not just an engineer, are you?" Alara asked, as they began examining her samples. Marek's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "Let's just say Drex isn't the only organization interested in what happens on Aurelius 9. Together, they dove into the analysis. Hours passed as they mapped the mysterious genetic sequence, tested its reactions to various stimuli, and documented its behavior. The storm raged outside, occasionally causing the lights to flicker despite the backup systems. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Merrick said, staring at the holographic display of the gene sequence they'd isolated. "It's not natural, at least not in the evolutionary sense we understand, but it's not artificial either. It's something else." "Could it be alien?" Alara suggested, the words feeling strange on her tongue. "Possibly. Or something far older than we realize. A genetic remnant from Earth's distant past that we never knew existed until now." As they worked, piecing together the puzzle, a horrifying realization began to dawn on Alara. This wasn't just about accelerated healing or adaptation. The implications were far more profound. "If this sequence is in all humans," she said slowly, "and if it can be activated or enhanced under certain conditions, then nothing we thought we knew about human biology is correct." Merrick finished her thought. "We're not who we think we are." The magnitude of the discovery settled over them like a shroud. This wasn't just a medical anomaly or a corporate secret. It was a revelation that could reshape humanity's entire understanding of itself. And in that moment, as the station trembled under the assault of the plasma storm, Alara knew with absolute certainty that Drex Corporation would never allow this information to become public. Not unless she forced their hand. The plasma storm reached its peak during the station's artificial night cycle. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the corridors as Alara and Merrick worked feverishly in Lab 7. They had less than 24 hours before communications would be restored, and they needed irrefutable evidence before then. "Look at this," Alara said, pointing to the holographic display where a simulation ran. When exposed to radiation, similar to that found in deep space, the sequence becomes even more active. "It's almost as if it was designed to function in space," Merrick muttered. "As if humans were meant to." The lab door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Director Kincaid stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 security officers in the sleek black uniforms of Drex's private security force. "I'm disappointed, Dr. Nakamura." Kincaid's voice was cold. "I thought we had an understanding about unauthorized research." Alara straightened, fighting to keep her expression neutral despite the panic rising in her chest. "This is basic medical investigation, Director. As Chief Medical Officer, it falls within my purview." "Not when it involves matters of corporate security." Kincaid stepped into the lab, her gaze sweeping over the equipment and displays. "And you, Solus. I always suspected your loyalties were divided." Marek moved subtly, positioning himself between the security officers and the main computer terminal. "This isn't about loyalty, Vera. It's about truth. Something Drex seems to have forgotten the value of. Truth is expensive, Kincaid smiled thinly. And Drex prefers to control its distribution. You knew, Alara realized, studying Kincaid's face. You knew about the anomalies in human DNA. We've been studying them for decades, long before this station was even built. Kincaid gestured to one of the security officers. Wipe their data and secure both of them for questioning. The officer moved forward, drawing a neural restraint device from his belt. Now, Alara! Merrick shouted, suddenly lunging toward the terminal. Alara didn't hesitate. She slammed her palm down on the emergency containment protocol button, a safety measure designed to lock down the lab in case of biological contamination. The doors sealed instantly, temporarily trapping all of them inside, but buying precious seconds. In the confusion, Merrick reached the terminal and began rapidly entering commands. "Stop him!" Kincaid ordered, but the security officers were momentarily disoriented by the containment system's flashing lights and alarm. Alara grabbed her encrypted data storage device and ran to a secondary terminal. She had one chance to get the truth out. While Kincaid and her security team focused on Merrick, she connected to the station's interplanetary communication array and began uploading her findings. The human body is both a weapon and the cutting edge of research, she narrated as she worked, recording a message to accompany the data. This genetic sequence challenges everything we thought we knew about ourselves. It must be studied openly, transparently, for the benefit of all humanity, not hoarded by corporations for profit. Across the lab, Merrick had created his own diversion, triggering a cascade of system alerts that further confused the security team. He caught Alara's eye and nodded, a silent confirmation that he was buying her time. "Shut down all communications!" Kincaid shouted, realizing too late what Alara was doing. But the damage was done. Just as a security officer reached Alara, tackling her to the ground, the upload completed. Her discovery, their discovery, was now broadcasting to every major research institution in the solar system. The truth was out. Whatever happened next, it couldn't be contained. The aftermath came swiftly. Within hours of communications being restored, Aurelius 9 was swarming with representatives from the Interplanetary Science Coalition, government agencies, and rival corporations. Director Kincaid was suspended pending investigation, and Drex's control over the station was temporarily revoked. Alara, though initially detained, was quickly released and her research given highest priority status. She found herself suddenly at the center of what was being called the most significant scientific discovery of the century. "You've started a revolution," Merrick told her, as they stood in the observation deck, watching a fleet of ships arrive to investigate the station. "Though not the kind either of us expected." "I still don't understand why Drex wanted to keep this secret," Alara said. "The medical applications alone. It's not about medicine for them. It's about power." Merrick's expression was grim. "Think about it. If humans can be genetically manipulated to heal faster, adapt to hostile environments, maybe even extend their lifespans dramatically, whoever controls that technology controls the future of the species." As they spoke, a team of specialists was dismantling a device discovered hidden within the station's environmental system, a nanopulse emitter that had been secretly triggering the enhanced cellular regeneration in the crew. It wasn't the cause of the unusual DNA, but it had been activating it, essentially using the entire crew as unwitting test subjects. "They were experimenting on us," Alara said quietly. "All of us. And themselves in the process," Merrick added. "That's the irony. Kincaid has the same genetic markers as everyone else. She was part of her own experiment." The revelation left Alara conflicted. She had begun this journey hoping to illuminate the mysteries of human physiology, to push the boundaries of medical science. Now she found herself questioning whether humanity was ready for the power this knowledge might bring. 3 weeks later, Alara returned to Earth as a member of the newly formed Interplanetary Genetic Oversight Committee. Humanity's physiological model had been reclassified under Category 0, latent species, an acknowledgement that humans harbored genetic potential far beyond what had been previously understood. As she settled into her new office at the Coalition headquarters in Geneva, Alara often found herself staring at a test tube containing cells from her own body. The mysterious genetic sequence was there, dormant but present, waiting for the right conditions to express itself. Should we push the limits of our bodies? She wondered aloud. The question haunted her. The potential for healing was enormous. Diseases could be eradicated, injuries repaired, perhaps even aging itself addressed. But so too was the potential for new forms of inequality, for weaponization, for changes that might ultimately make us something other than human. The line between miracle and monstrosity had never seemed so thin. Marek, now revealed as a longtime operative for a scientific watchdog organization, had been appointed as her liaison to the research teams still working on Aurelius 9. Together, they faced the daunting task of establishing ethical guidelines for what promised to be a new era in human evolution. The extraordinary healing rate could cure everything, Marek observed during one of their video conferences. But what happens when we lose control of it? When the adaptation process exceeds our ability to predict or contain it? It was the question no one had answered yet, the shadow looming over their remarkable discovery. As she ended the call with Marek, Alara turned to the window of her office, looking out over the city where humanity had built its central governing institutions. Somewhere out there, ordinary people were going about their lives, unaware that the very definition of what it meant to be human was being rewritten. Would this discovery lead to a new golden age of health and adaptation? Or would humanity, in its rush to exploit this newfound power, create something terrifying, something that transcended the boundaries of human ethics and compassion? The unknown genetic sequence continued its silent work within every human cell, repairing, adapting, evolving, waiting. And that, Alara knew, was the most terrifying reality of all. In the months that followed, research centers across Earth and the colonies worked feverishly to understand the implications of what was now being called the Nakamura Solis discovery. Preliminary studies confirmed what Alara and Marek had found. Every human tested carried the same mysterious genetic sequence, though its expression varied widely under different conditions. The public reaction ranged from religious awe to existential panic. Some saw the discovery as evidence of divine design or ancient alien intervention in human evolution. Others feared it signaled the beginning of an uncontrollable biological transformation. Markets fluctuated wildly as pharmaceutical companies and biotech firms scrambled to position themselves in this new scientific landscape. Through it all, Alara maintained a cautious approach, advocating for thorough research before any attempts to activate or enhance the sequence. Her position often put her at odds with both corporate interests and public opinion. But she remained steadfast. "We're not just scientists anymore," she told Marek during one of their strategy sessions. "We've become custodians of humanity's biological future." "A responsibility I never asked for," he replied with a wry smile. "But here we are." Their work was complicated by the emergence of underground enhancement clinics that promised to activate the latent genetic potential in their clients. Most were frauds, but a few had apparently obtained actual technology from Aurelius 9, or had developed their own methods based on the leaked research. The results were predictably disastrous: genetic instabilities, uncontrolled cellular growth, immune system collapse. Each failure fueled public fear and strengthened Alara's position that careful, regulated research was the only safe path forward. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Dr. Hannah Rojek, a medical ethicist who had been working with tissue samples from particularly responsive individuals, discovered that the mysterious genetic sequence interacted with specific environmental triggers in ways that suggested a programmed response rather than random adaptation. It's as if this DNA was designed to activate under very specific conditions, she explained to Alara during an emergency conference. Conditions that match those found in deep space or on certain types of planets. You're saying we were engineered? Alara asked, the implications staggering her. I'm saying this DNA doesn't behave like anything that evolved naturally on Earth. It responds to stimuli that humans wouldn't have encountered during their evolutionary history. The revelation sent shockwaves through the scientific community. If humans carried genetic code that was designed for space travel or colonization of specific types of worlds, the implications for human origin theories were profound. But before these theories could be fully explored, a more immediate crisis emerged. Reports began coming in from several research facilities of spontaneous activation of the sequence, even without external triggers. Subjects were showing accelerated healing, enhanced cellular adaptation, and in some cases, physical transformations that defied classification. It's learning, Merrick said during an emergency meeting of the Oversight Committee. The more we study it, the more it adapts to our methods of study. That's not possible. Another committee member objected. DNA doesn't have agency or intelligence. 3 months ago, we would have said that DNA doesn't repair itself at the rates we're now documenting. Alara pointed out. We need to accept that our understanding of human biology has been fundamentally inadequate. As the crisis deepened, Alara found herself increasingly isolated. Half the scientific community viewed her as too cautious, hampering progress with her insistence on ethical boundaries. The other half blamed her for unleashing forces beyond human control. Late one night, as she worked alone in her lab at the Geneva facility, Merrick arrived unannounced. His expression was grave. They've lost containment at the Moscow Research Center, he said without preamble. 3 researchers were exposed to a concentrated dose of the activation catalyst they were developing. The changes are accelerating beyond anything we've seen. Alara felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. Casualties? Not exactly. Merrick handed her a tablet with footage from the Moscow facility. They're alive, but they're changing, rapidly, and they've developed abilities we can't explain. The video showed 3 figures in isolation chambers. Their physical forms remained recognizably human, but their movements were too quick, too precise, and around them, equipment seemed to respond without being touched, as if they were somehow manipulating their environment through thought alone. They're still conscious, Merrick continued, still communicating. They say they're expanding, becoming what humans were always meant to be. Alara stared at the footage, a singular thought crystallizing in her mind. We didn't discover something new about humanity, she whispered. We activated something ancient that was waiting to be triggered. The question is, Merrick said quietly, waiting for what purpose? And who or what put it there? As they watched, one of the transformed researchers looked directly into the camera. Though the face was still recognizably human, the eyes held something else, something older, vaster, more knowing than any human gaze should contain. And suddenly, Alara understood the true terror of their discovery. It wasn't just that human bodies made no sense according to established science. It was that they made perfect sense according to a design logic that no human had created. We were not who we thought we were, and whatever we were becoming might be magnificent, or it might be monstrous, but it would certainly be beyond our current capacity to control. The transformation had begun, and all Alara could do now was bear witness to humanity's metamorphosis, hoping that whatever emerged would retain the compassion and ethics that had defined the best of what humanity had been. As the screen went dark, a message appeared, transmitted somehow by the changed researchers before the facility lost all communication. We are becoming, join us or be left behind. The stars are waiting. The choice now facing humanity was stark. Embrace this evolutionary leap into the unknown, or fight to remain within the comfortable boundaries of what it had always meant to be human. Either way, nothing would ever be the same again. And that was the most terrifying truth of all.